This story, titled "My Family Used My Savings to Fund My Brother's Wedding." When I complained, they told me to stop being selfish, is a journey of betrayal, resilience, and standing up for your worth, even when it means going against the people closest to you. My name is Olivia, and I'm 27 years old. I live in Dallas, Texas, where I work as an accountant. I've always been careful with money, planning my finances meticulously, and saving for the future. I wasn't born into wealth, so every penny I earned felt like a step toward building a life I could be proud of. My family, however, had a very different relationship with money. Growing up, I watched my parents and older brother Ethan make one financial mistake after another. They were the kind of people who believed in living for today, often spending beyond their means and worrying about the consequences later. While I loved them, their carefree attitude toward money often clashed with my cautious, forward-thinking approach. But I never imagined their financial irresponsibility would lead to one of the most painful betrayals of my life. It all started last year when Ethan announced his engagement to his girlfriend, Grace. The news came as a surprise to everyone. Ethan had never been the type to settle down, but I was genuinely happy for him. He and Grace seemed like a great match, and I was excited to celebrate this new chapter in his life. However, it didn't take long for the excitement to turn into stress. Ethan wanted a grand, extravagant wedding, complete with a lavish venue, designer outfits, and a guest list that seemed to grow by the day. My parents, eager to support their golden child, assured him that they would cover the costs. At first, I didn't think much of it. Ethan had always been the favorite, and my parents had a habit of bending over backward to accommodate his wants. But as the months went by, I started to notice strange discrepancies in my bank account. One evening, while reviewing my monthly statements, I saw multiple large withdrawals I didn't recognize. Panic set in as I scrolled through the transactions, trying to make sense of what had happened. The amounts were significant. Thousands of dollars, pulled from my savings account. I immediately called my bank, assuming there had been a mistake, or worse, that I had been hacked. But what they told me left me speechless. "Miss, the transactions were authorized using your joint account with your parents." My heart sank. I had opened that joint account with my parents years ago, back when I was a teenager and didn't know any better. It was meant to be temporary, a way for them to help me manage my money while I learned about budgeting. Over time, I had forgotten about it, assuming it was no longer active. But clearly, my parents hadn't forgotten. Furious and heartbroken, I confronted my parents the next day. "Mom, Dad," I said, holding up my bank statement, "can you explain why thousands of dollars have been taken from my savings account?" They exchanged nervous glances before my mom spoke up. "Olivia, we needed the money for Ethan's wedding. It's such an important event, and we couldn't let him down." I stared at her in disbelief. "You took my money without asking? That was my savings. Money I've been putting aside for years." My dad chimed in, his tone defensive. "It's not like you were using it right now. You're young, Olivia. You'll have plenty of time to save more. Ethan needed it more than you did." Their words felt like a slap in the face. I had worked tirelessly to build those savings, sacrificing vacations, nights out, and other luxuries to create a safety net for myself. And now it was gone, all to fund an extravagant wedding I hadn't even agreed to support. "But it wasn't yours to take," I said, my voice shaking. "You had no right to make that decision without consulting me." My mom's expression hardened. "Olivia, stop being selfish. This is about family. We all have to make sacrifices for each other." Her words stung more than I expected. In that moment, it became clear that my feelings didn't matter to them, not as much as Ethan's happiness, anyway. Over the next few weeks, the tension in our family reached a boiling point. I demanded that they return the money, but they insisted they couldn't. Most of it had already been spent on deposits and other non-refundable expenses. Ethan, for his part, acted as if the entire situation was no big deal. "Come on, Liv," he said during one heated conversation. "You know Mom and Dad will pay you back eventually. Why are you making such a fuss?" "Because it's not about the money, Ethan," I replied. "It's about respect. You all went behind my back and made a decision that wasn't yours to make. How am I supposed to trust any of you after this?" He rolled his eyes, brushing me off like I was overreacting. I realized then that I had two choices. I could continue to fight a losing battle, or I could walk away. Walking away from my family wasn't an easy decision, but I knew it was the only way to protect my peace. I had spent so much time trying to reason with them, to make them see how deeply their actions had hurt me, but it was clear they weren't willing to take accountability. After our final argument, I decided to sever financial ties with my parents once and for all. I visited the bank the very next day to close the joint account they had used to take my savings. Sitting in that office, signing the paperwork, I felt a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a strange sense of empowerment. The bank manager, a kind older woman, must have sensed my distress. "Sometimes setting boundaries is the best thing you can do," she said gently. Her words stayed with me as I walked out of the bank, knowing I had taken the first step toward reclaiming control over my life. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding what I had lost. I picked up extra hours at work, started freelancing on the side, and created a new savings account, one that only I had access to. It wasn't easy, but every small deposit felt like a victory. I also leaned on my friends during this time. They were my lifeline, offering support and reminding me that I wasn't wrong for standing up for myself. My best friend Jess was especially vocal about her frustration with my family. "They had no right to take your money," she said one evening, as we sat in my apartment, sipping coffee. "You're not selfish, Olivia. They're just trying to guilt you into letting it go because they don't want to face the consequences of their actions." Her words were a reminder I needed. For so long, my family had framed my resistance as selfishness, but deep down, I knew the truth. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family remained strained. My parents continued to insist that I was overreacting, while Ethan barely acknowledged the situation at all. Every time I received a text or call from them, it was filled with guilt-tripping or passive-aggressive remarks. "Olivia, you need to let this go," my mom said during one particularly tense phone call. "Ethan's wedding was beautiful, and it brought so much joy to the family. Isn't that what really matters?" "No, Mom," I replied firmly. "What matters is that you stole from me and then blamed me for being upset about it. I'm glad Ethan's wedding was nice, but that doesn't excuse what you did." Her response was silence, followed by a sigh. "I just don't understand why you're being so cold." That was the moment I realized my family might never truly understand my perspective. And as painful as that realization was, it also gave me a sense of closure. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life, both financially and emotionally. I threw myself into my work, joined a local hiking club to meet new people, and even started therapy to process everything I had been through. Therapy in particular was a game changer. My therapist helped me unpack the guilt and resentment I had been carrying for years and taught me how to prioritize my own needs without feeling ashamed. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Ethan reached out to me. "Hey Liv," his text read. "I know things have been rough between us, but I was wondering if we could talk." Part of me wanted to ignore him, to protect the peace I had worked so hard to find. But another part of me was curious. Could this be the beginning of an apology? We met at a coffee shop the following weekend. Ethan looked nervous, fidgeting with his cup as he spoke. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he began. "I didn't realize how much the whole wedding thing hurt you. I guess I was so focused on what I wanted that I didn't stop to think about how unfair it was to you." His apology caught me off guard. For so long, I had convinced myself that Ethan didn't care about my feelings, but hearing him acknowledge his mistakes felt healing. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I've been waiting a long time to hear it." We talked for a while, and while it didn't erase the hurt, it felt like a step toward mending our relationship. As for my parents, they never fully apologized, but over time, the tension between us began to ease. I kept my distance, maintaining firm boundaries while still leaving room for occasional conversations. They may never understand the depth of their betrayal, but I've made peace with that. Looking back, this experience taught me some of the most valuable lessons of my life. It taught me that boundaries are essential, even with family. It taught me that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strong. And it taught me that sometimes the people who hurt you won't apologize or change, and that's okay. Healing doesn't always require their acknowledgement. It requires your own. Today, I'm in a much better place. My savings account is growing steadily, my relationships with friends are stronger than ever, and I've built a life that feels authentically mine. I'm proud of the person I've become, someone who knows her worth and isn't afraid to protect it. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family or stand up for yourself in a tough situation? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. Thank you for supporting this channel and being part of these important conversations.